Welcome back once more. This is Sunday edition. Now, this is the biggest political and governance story in the country. Today, the NASA principals are set to lead the opposition in the coastal city of Mombasa for another People's Assembly rally. They were in Machakos on Friday. I want us to focus on the so-called push and pull inside NASA, with hardliners said to be saying that time for dialogue is over, and there are analysts say moderates who are calling for dialogue before that swearing in on the 30th of January. We have people like David Ndi, a governance expert who has been pushing and setting up the People's Assemblies and that swearing in process, who says time for dialogue is over, as people like Miguna, who have been calling out those who he says or accuses of betraying the cause by the opposition. We have people like the Makueni governor, who is also the Wiper chairman, Professor Kivutha Kibwana, who has been saying that dialogue should be given a chance, as has the former senator from Kakamega, that is Boni Khalwale, who is a deputy party leader for Ford Kenya, who has been on record as calling out for dialogue to avert possible potential chaos. So, which is which? Are there moderates and are there radicals inside NASA? And is the next 1 week very crucial in determining what happens in this cause by NASA? Very quickly, gentlemen, let me start with you, Dismas. Are there radicals and moderates inside NASA, and what do you think is the end game here?
Well, Ben, I've had the time to study the body language of those four principals, and I try to deconstruct their speeches. And it's very clear, you don't have moderates within NASA, nor extremists or hardliners. The thing is that you've got two opinions. There is one group of persons which is saying that we are not going to accept nor move on, that we want Raila Odinga to be sworn in as the people's president, so that when he goes to have a conversation with President Kenyatta, it's going there in his capacity as the people's president. So for them, in their perception, they want a meeting of two presidents, that we have a people's president here and the president of the Republic of Kenya. So that is what sections of the propaganda world are calling hardliners. Yet there's another group which says, because of the unknown, that if you swear in Raila Odinga, you don't know what is going to happen. The nation may explode. We may lose our trajectory. Why can't we create the opportunity for dialogue? Because the people really, whether or not Raila gets sworn in as the people's president, at the end of the day, what he's going to fight for is electoral justice in Kenya. So that's the crux of the matter. And then you've got another third group which is very silent, which is saying, let's have dialogue. And one of the key topics of conversation within this dialogue, as soon as we agree on the issues on the table, is to come up with a timetable for an election. So I wouldn't describe those as maybe extremists, hardliners, or moderates.
Let's listen into the so-called radicals and what they've been saying about these People's Assembly rallies and the swearing-in plan for the 30th.
We wish to reiterate that the swearing-in is a reclamation of the NASA presidential election victory of August the 8th, 2017, which, by the act of annulling Uhuru Kenyatta's victory, the Supreme Court of Kenya validated. If Uhuru's election was null and void, it stands to reason that that election was won by someone else, and that person is Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka as his running mate. NASA is not interested in a boardroom deal. We've had boardroom deals before. They have not delivered for the people. We would not be here if the boardroom deal we had in 2007 and 8 had delivered for the people.
Governance expert and economist and NASA advisor David Ndi. We understand there are some reports, Mark, that indicate that there have been quiet wars behind the scenes in the boardroom that could derail that much publicized swearing in. Do you think this could happen?
I think they were not quiet was because I can imagine you are having a debate that could possibly lead to you being charged with treason after the said discussion has been executed. That is not a matter that any person who values their life, values their family, and values their nation takes lightly, because such matters are indeed life and death matters. So let's begin there. But the second thing is, and it goes back to what Kavemba and I have been saying over and over again, the key question is why take this route? Okay? It's like you're being told, listen, there's a car that will travel at 300 kilometers per hour to Mombasa on a very dangerous road, or there is a train that will travel at 200 kilometers per hour and it will get to Mombasa safely. By the time you're choosing the 300 kilometers per hour car, you've got to have a certain appetite for risk and death and danger. And the question is, does Musalia Mudavadi look like the kind of person who's willing to risk life and limb for what is the presidency, in quotes, of Raila Odinga? Is indeed Wetangula willing to lose his senatorial position in participating in a crime? Is David D going to be considered a consultant of international repute if he indeed engages in what is a subterfuge of a republic that has a constituted government? No, these are the questions you've got to ask yourself. You know, the thing is, and this is the problem that we have, we're treating these things as though they do not have significance. They do. Your life will literally not be the same post exercising a treasonous act. You understand? That is just how it is. The law will take effect, and I can guarantee you that the silence we are seeing from the president and the deputy means that they've already decided what they will do come 30th. For them, it is not an unknown known. They have probably decided what they will do, and the handcuffs are probably waiting somewhere.
It's a non-known.
It's a non-known.
Hezbollah.
Yes.
The four principles in us have been under massive pressure from the moderates and the international community calling for dialogue. Let me be the devil's advocate here. Do you think there could be divisions even among the four?
Well, you know, when you have something as substantive as swearing in, the person of the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, then you must have different and divergent voices. And the question we should be asking ourselves is NASA handling the divergent voices within itself? They are doing that impeccably. And to respond to Mark here on the question of treason, I think the question of treason is what in law would call superfluous. It is neither here nor there. We have no business talking about that. When a goat is taking itself to the abattoir, and the people who eat goat meat are busy telling the goat, you don't need to go to the abattoir, then we need to come to the realization that that abattoir has more than the slaughter of goats. And that is the question. Now, do we have hardliners, softliners? Nothing. If you don't have a position that is hardline, you know nothing about what you're fighting for. And I think it is very clear that NASA has a position. And as we know, in a football match, the main aim is to win the game. So they are wingers, they are holding midfielders, they are hard tacklers. So there are people who will tackle hard because that is their role. There are people who will be soft, that is their role. Anyone who is sitting along the fence knows nothing about what they are fighting for. And if you listen to folks like David Ndii, if you listen to James Orengo, if you listen to Professor Kivutha Kibwana, who on Friday talked about a hardline position, there is no room for dialogue, you'd understand that enough people in NASA are talking about what they know. They have a position and they are hard on that position. Whether they express it in a very hard way or soft way, if you know what you're fighting for, you take a hardline position. If you don't know, you'd say things that are neither here nor there.
Mutinda, do you think there are those people who say that the only reason that NASA is going ahead with this hardline position, as they are calling it, is the fact that their core support base will be disappointed and disillusioned rather than, achieving the overall objective of electoral justice?
Thank you very much for capturing it that way, because it is exactly what it is. You see, you also have to look at the 2022 politics. There are people within NASA who are very keen on inheriting the political base of Raila Amolo Odinga. And they know that there are statements that they can make regarding this issue that would jeopardize that would bring some sort of mistrust among that core political base. And because they want to inherit it, they are playing to the public gallery. They want to show it, to show that kind of political base that you have as good a person in me as you have in Raila Amolo Odinga. That the kind of trust you've put on Raila Amolo Odinga, you can as well put that kind of trust on me. And that's why they are taking some of those kind of positions. Look at someone like Boni Halwale, who of course is not among those people who are keen on inheriting that political base. He's a bit more sober on his approach. Actually, after one event in Kakamega, he publicly expressed his disappointment about how this whole swearing-in thing is turning into a joke, and that is not exactly what he had in mind. If it was to support a swearing-in, he was keen on having a substantive kind of swearing-in that would have some sort of impact. But this issue of giving Raila a Bible in every is actually turning into some sort of, comedy. And he said that is not part of that. But if you look at Musalia Mudavadi, for instance, if you look at Kalonzo Musyoka, they might be having, deep down, they might be having a very different opinion. Because they are keen on ensuring that they don't come out as people who are betrayed, that Raila's core support, which is support base, which is what they are looking forward to inheriting, then they are behaving the way they are behaving. Right. That one is very valid, and if you actually ask me, that is exactly what is happening. They are more keen on inheriting and winning the confidence of this core support base of Raila than in even having electoral justice.
All right. Let's have the final say on this issue. Let's come to the core of the crystal ball itself. I want to get your predictions very quickly on this. It could be a very important make or break week for that cause, as it were. Dismas, starting with you in 45 seconds only. What do you think will happen on the 30th of January?
Probability of Raila being sworn in as the people's president is very high. That's the unknown, and that's what is making everybody nervous. And please allow me to use your crystal ball to make an appeal to President Kenyatta. He needs to crack the whip on a Jubilee governors whose audit reports are not very solid, especially the ones who are re-elected. I'm really on that issue because devolution is the key to Kenya. The Auditor General's report, for instance, in Murang'a, has given an adverse opinion. We need to do that investigation.
We will do a special show on Murang'a, just for you. Mark, what is your prediction?
Weirdly enough, and I'm going against statistics here, but I have a deep sense in me, and I've been right so far, that there'll be no swearing in on 30th. That is my view. Secondly, I think before 30th, there'll be a cabinet mentioned by the sitting president. And my third prediction is heads are going to roll in parliament because I don't think Jubilee is going to sit ground and allow MPs to run riot. I think it's important for both 2022 and this term that the party stays together and parliamentarians toe the line. So I expect there to be changes within the parliamentary committees this week.
Hesbon, will there be a swearing in?
No, there will be no swearing in, but a goal will be scored. So what I mean is very simple, that from where I see it, the swearing in is just about electoral justice. And what NASA is essentially pushing for, from my own opinion, is a situation where they have a roundtable on electoral justice. If that is provided, there is no swearing in. And I think the government will provide that avenue.
Mutinda, what is your prediction?
On the swearing in, I don't think it will take place. And mostly it will actually depend on how the government handles the whole thing. Because there are only two options, that they are let to go on with their function or they are stopped. And it's most likely that even the venue they chose, the venue they chose is in Nairobi. Nairobi is now under the Jubilee government, a Jubilee government even at the county level. And probably they deliberately did that, hoping and praying that there is some interference so that, again, they still have something to go back to their people and tell them that you saw what happened and we are still working on, so that they pushed the goal forward, shifting the goalpost. That is most likely what is going to happen. So I don't see a swearing-in taking place.
Allow me to make my last comment, and I'm making this as a patriotic Kenyan. There are people who've ignored Raila Odinga in the past. When he's made a statement, you ignore him. At the end of the day, the nation has suffered. When he gives himself the energy to fight for a cause, he goes to the bitter end. So really, the buck stops with President Kenyatta today.
All right.
To call Raila Odinga for a cup of coffee, only the two of them, and get a way forward for the nation. Because if they don't have that dialogue today or tomorrow, they may have the dialogue under conditions which are not very sweet for Wanjiku, because Kenyans need to celebrate a new beginning, and it can only happen if those two leaders meet.
Thank you.
Ignore the likes of Dr. David Indi and company, because, you know, advisors suffer no risk in this process. The buck stops with President Kenyatta and Raila Odinga.
Thank you. That is my crystal ball. It is a very, analysts say, big week for NASA, the National Super Alliance, and it could be a make or break week to determine whether that swearing-in ceremony will happen on the 30th of January. We are keeping an eye on that. NASA principals leading the NASA team, the opposition, to the coastal city of Mombasa today for another People's Assembly rally. We are keeping an eye on that for you. That's why we leave it for the program. Thank you, gentlemen. This was Mokua political risk analyst, Mark Bichachi and Hezbon Owila, and political strategist Mutinda Kavemba. Thank you for your time, gentlemen. I shall leave it on the broadcast this Sunday morning. Let's touch base again next Sunday, same time, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. here on Sunday edition, as we discuss and dissect the biggest political stories in this country. Up next is Weekend at 1 with Zinzi Kibi. Don't go too far.